my own special creation. So come take a look, give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I am what I
am. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for coming today. This is the last of our Bondi Stories, Bondi Story Room in conversation today with the incredible, and there is no other word for her, Jan Carmody. Before we get underway, I'd like to acknowledge that we are standing on the land of the Gadigal, the Bidjigal and the Birrabirragal people, land that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. These are words that are really important to us here in the Bondi Pavilion, a space where we have named new spaces in consultation and collaboration with the Gujaga Foundation. We are gathering today in the Yalagang Room, a word meaning to rejoice, and in naming spaces like this we acknowledge that we are in a tradition that is thousands of years old. It's been talked about today already, and that we are proud to be in that tradition. But as we get underway, Jan, we might start with, where were you born?
I was born in Waverley Hospital, and Dad was a bank manager. So we lived on the premises of the bank, which is now the Westfield Shopping Centre. So the bank was sitting right there at Westfield Shopping Centre. So when I go in there now and have a coffee, I look all around and I think, isn't this amazing? You know, I was just a little girl living in the bank. And I used to get up on the awning and run around and wave to people down sitting on bus stops. And I'm going, oh, there's a baby up there. You know? I go, hello. So that was in 1939.
Wow.
Just when the war was starting, and bombs were coming over, as you know. We were hiding on the bank manager's desk during the war, and there were barbed wire fencing along the Bondi Beach. I don't know whether people know that, but that was amazing to think that happened. And in those days, parents used to send their children to the country to stay because they were worried about the Japanese landing in Bondi. And so my sister and I went up to stay in Granny's farm, Coolman, and Jill was 5 years older than me, so I was only about 3, Jill was 8, and after a while Jill said to Mum, Mum, I think we can come home now. I don't think the naughty chaps will hurt us anymore. That's good. So anyway, we came back to Sydney. Yeah.
Jan, most people will know you as a Bondi Mermaid. Can you tell the room why that might be the case?
Well, I won the Miss Australian Surf competition and went around the world with June Watkins, who was chaperone, and a Mr. Surf, Colin McFarlane, who was the Australian belt champion. Lovely young man. So we had a wonderful trip. We arrived in Hawaii, and that was the first stopover. King Kahanamoku met us at the airport. And you'll enjoy this story. They held a big surf carnival for us. And of course, to qualify to go in the competition, the girls only had to be able to swim 100 yards in the surf and 100 yards in still water.
Nice.
So, and I caught a wave coming in, so I qualified to go into the competition. There were 300 girls, and the rest was a beauty contest. So I didn't have to swim terribly well, I was just a mediocre swimmer. So when we got to Hawaii, they held a surf carnival for us at Makapu Beach, and when we got down there, the waves were huge, huge. And I looked at Colin and I said, I can't go in there, I'll drown. And he said, you have to, you must surf. It's like that story about the kid that didn't want to go to school, and his mother said, you have to, you're the teacher. So I thought that was hilarious. You have to, you must surf. So the girl that was running it came over to me and said, oh, Miss Surf, I hope you don't mind, but we've cancelled the girls' competition because the waves are extra large. And I said, oh, I'm terribly disappointed. Never mind. No, we don't have to call them lower. I don't have to go in. I wouldn't be sitting here today.
And these stories are all why you were the inspiration for Lyall Randolph's sculptures as
That's
well.
right.
Can you
Yes.
tell, for those, these sculptures haven't existed for a long time, they're kind of a well-loved memory of Bondi Beach, but for those who don't know, what were these sculptures?
Well, Lyall Randolph paid for them himself. It was $4,000 he outlaid, and that was a lot of money back there in 1959. And because I'd just come back winning the competition, I was in the papers, and so I suppose I caught his eye. And Lynette Willier she was one of the runner-ups in the competition. So she was the other mermaid. So he approached me and I said, yes, I'd like to do that. But I was too shy to pose in the nude. So I posed in my terry toweling bikini. And my boyfriend at the time used to come and sit and watch, be with me at the sittings because he was worried that, you know, the sculpture might get a bit fresh. So he looked after me.
So there were two, we've got a painting, you've done this beautiful painting of them here. There were two basically illegal sculptures erected in North Bondi. Do you know what they were made of?
Yes, fiberglass, gold fiberglass, but I think the inside was concrete, and then the fiberglass over that. But the council knocked him back and said that they didn't want him to do it. They wouldn't help him with money, of course, but he went ahead and did it. That's a picture of them there.
So the council at the time stated, and rightfully, in terms of legislation, they didn't have authority over the rocks, so they couldn't give permission for the artworks to go on the rocks. And we've had many calls since to reinstate the mermaids, and we still don't have the legislative power to do that. But also we don't necessarily want to put mermaids on rocks to encourage people out to them in terms of health and safety. But we will be bringing back mermaids in the next 2 years. We've got a public art project. So we will have mermaids back in the Bondi Basin just before anyone asks about mermaids. But we've got these great images from Jan's book as well of them. And Jan, these were extremely loved parts of the Bondi story. Everyone loved them. There were many photos and postcards of them. What was that like, having your face on a local icon?
Oh, I was very flattered and very, you know, pleased and happy about it. I used to bring my children down to have a look at them, which is Cassie here. She was a little toddler, and she'd go, "That's you, Mummy."
And did people recognise you in the street as the Bondi Mermaid? Like, were you that famous because of it?
No,
not quite.
I can't say that.
Right.
No, not really. But no, it was lovely to have had that experience. And Lyall Randolph was a wonderful sculptor. He did Princess Margaret, did a sculpture of Princess Margaret, and Margot Fontaine, and some other famous people overseas.
And did you stay friends with Lyall? What was your relationship like with Lyall, the artist?
Oh, I didn't see him
No.
apart from the sittings.
Yep. What were those actual sittings like? I didn't realise your boyfriend was present, so that would have changed things. But I've seen some photos of sittings on the beach. where he modelled into the sand to work out what a tail might look like. Was that with you or Lynette?
Lynette.
Lynette.
Yes.
Did he do anything like that with you?
No.
No.
No. My boyfriend at the time was Cassie's dad. Ended up being Cassie's dad.
Lovely.
Yeah. But no, I don't remember having that time. But the sittings were, you know, very casual and very comfortable, and no drama, except my boyfriend was a bit worried.
Fair enough. But there were dramas for the Mermaids. The Mermaids had plenty of dramas. In fact, at one point, one of them went missing.
Yes.
Can you tell everyone what happened when a mermaid was stolen?
Yes, well, the university students, there were 2 of them, and they dislodged both of them, and one got swept out to sea, that was Lynette. And mine, they clothed me and took me up to the police station. Because I was disgusting, vulgar.
But they...
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, there was such a controversy about it. The girls, their names being new. So Dr. Rumble, I think his name was, he was a Catholic priest, and there was a write-up in the paper that he said the mermaids were vulgar, they shouldn't be there, and that it would lure young men to their graves. Leaning over the fences looking at the new mermaids. So that was a big story. It's all in here. Later, if you want to have a look, it's cool.
You had a pretty remarkable modelling career. How did the Mermaids contribute to that?
Well, it did help. I really got established in modelling because of winning the Miss Australian Surf competition. When I got back, I got a lot of jobs. And I was very shy. And I remember going to a meeting at Mark Foy's to do a swimsuit parade. And the lady that was the fashion buyer there, Mona Crawford, she was a very tough lady. She scared on it. And I was very shy. And she said, okay, put on that swimsuit. And so I put it on and I came out and stood there like this. And she said, turn around. And I turned around. She said, yes, very nice, but you'll have to get some falsies. And I said, I've already got them on. And she said, oh, well, you'll have to get a bigger pair, won't you? So I blushed, of course. So that was my entry into the modelling game.
And for those who don't know, Miss Bondi, it's a thing of the past, but we had many Miss Bondis. What was the Miss Bondi program?
Well, there was
competition, sorry.
Yeah, well, there were 6 sponsors, and it really wasn't called the Miss Bondi.
Yep.
It was the Miss Australian Surf competition, and there were 6 sponsors: Westinghouse, Cola, California, Speedo, Revlon, Surf Detergent. It was Qantas, I think that's 6. So it was a big competition, and there was a lot of publicity. And of course, going overseas, we went to Hawaii first, then Los Angeles, and I was offered a screen test for part of Daisy May and film Little Abner.
And why didn't you take that?
Well, June Daly was my chaperone, and she was frightened. I was sitting there at Columbia Studios, we were having lunch, and this director was sitting over there staring at me all the time. So he came over and he said, I'd like you to come to my office, and I'd like to talk to you about a screen test and part of Daisy May. I was 21. So June said, you're not going in there without me. So she knew what directors were like. You know, it's all come out in the open now, hasn't it? So I went in, and he said he wanted me to stay for 6 weeks for the screen test. but I couldn't because I had to be in certain countries at a certain time for the publicity of being Miss Surf. So he said, well, come back, but I just want to go home and marry Peter.
Oh, that's so sweet. So there's no regrets about turning that down or
No.
pursuing Hollywood?
Well, when I was a kid at school, all I wanted to do was paste movie stars and books, because I was starstruck.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get to Hollywood and become a movie star. And Mum used to say to me, you're going to go to Hollywood one day. I go, oh, you know, and sure enough I did. But when I got there and learnt all about the people, the movie stars, can I tell them about Rock Hudson? Well, Jude and I and Colin went to a restaurant one night with Jeanette Elphick, who was a famous Australian model, and she went to Hollywood. Bob Hope discovered her and took her to Hollywood. And she did the Eddie Dusham story, a movie. Anyway, she took us to this restaurant one night, and I said to her, gee, he's a good sort sitting over there in the corner. And she said, oh, that's so-and-so, he's on with Rock Hudson. And I went, what? Is Rock Hudson I won't say that word. A gay guy. We used to say something else, which wasn't nice. Anyway, she said, of course he is. I said, oh, no. And she said, Marilyn Monroe's on with the president. So when I came back to Australia, I told all my friends, Rock Hudson's gay, and Marilyn's on with the president. Oh, Jan, you're so naive, believe anything. Of course, years later it came out. But so I learned all about the movie stars, which wasn't very pretty. There were some that were nice. Charlton Heston was divine. And Jerry Lewis, I've got photos in here of him. Gina Lollobrigida, forget a lot of them. Anyway, some of them were very nice, but most of them were pretty seedy, and you know, I thought, oh, I don't. And June said, you're not going to come back to Hollywood, no way, you wouldn't cope.
Were you glad to have her support? It sounds like she was a real mentor and a real guardian.
She was. She was very protective.
Did you have much of a relationship with her after the tour?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
We stayed friends up until she died, which was 18 months ago, I think. But no, we were great friends. We actually went back overseas in 1997 for a trip, and with some of her students from the agency, and that was lovely. And I joined her agency when I came back to Australia.
Beautiful.
And that's where I did my modelling.
I'd love to come back to the Mermaids because we haven't really talked about their final chapter. Because so Lynette's mermaid has gone out to sea,
yes,
never to be seen again.
Well, I wish there was a diver who
Don't we all?
Isn't there anyone out there who'd like to go diving?
But your mermaid, then where does it end up? What's its remaining?
It's in the Waverley Library in a huge showcase, and.
But even before that, it kind of disappears for 20-ish years?
Yes, it did.
And where does it go?
First of all, it went to the engineer's office in the council. Then we were working on Lismania, and I tried to raise money to have them put back on the rocks, but never got anywhere. Apparently the locals didn't want them put back because it would bring too many visitors.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was a bit sad.
And then they unearth it at a depot, of all places. So it kind of shows up at a council depot, right?
Yes.
And then what happens?
Then I think it went to the library from there.
And there was a bit of a campaign from the Friends of the Waverley Library, and they're the ones who have it repaired and moved there, right?
Well, it's not repaired really.
Oh, well,
I've got a pacemaker.
Yeah. Retained, stabilised. It's stabilised and conserved. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, it's in the showcase. And the other night I was there to see the art exhibition. That's it, in the showcase.
And that's a good note as well. So recently, Janine Hall has just had an exhibition of the Bondi Mermaids, as well as other historical photographs. But the Bondi Mermaids pop up a lot. How often do they pop up in artworks, popular culture? How often do you get notes about people treasuring or wanting to talk about the Bondi Mermaids?
Not very often, unfortunately.
We get them at council all the time.
Right.
So,
mind you, I went to the country to live.
Yes.
And so I was sort of out of Bondi for a while, 20 years, living around Byron Bay. And with Cassie and the children, my son passed away.
So we have a fact sheet sitting there ready because we have questions so often that it's easier for us just to give that out now. It's a real constant inquiry for us.
Yes. I did go on the morning show here with Liz Mania a while back. So we talked about the mermaids there. And but there hasn't been enough publicity. I wrote to Kerry Packer a long time ago and asking him if he would help, not financially, but if he would give publicity and try to do something about getting them put on the rocks.
There you go.
Poor Lyall Randolph too, he died, I think it was 1974, tragically. He was in a caravan park in Geelong, living there in the caravan park, and his dog accidentally bit him on the leg, and he got an infection from the bite, and he never went to the doctor about it. He just, looked after it himself, and he died from that. That's sad.
Blood poisoning from a dog bite.
Yes.
Happens quite often, unfortunately. Still happens.
There you go.
Yes, very sad ending.
Does anyone else have any questions for Jan or the Bondi Mermaids? Hey.
I am a local Bondi girl. I'm not tall, blonde and tanned, but I can remember vaguely around 6 or 7, and I'm turning 58 this year, so it's over 50 years ago. I thought there was some kind of placard there where the mermaids had been on the rocks.
I think there is.
Is it still
Yes.
there?
My understanding is this. I haven't seen it recently, but there's a plaque there to commemorate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, that's right.
I always thought I was a mermaid, so I always loved the stories about it.
I went to school not so long ago with my granddaughter, and she introduced me to one of her friends, and she said, "This is my grandma. She was a mermaid." And the little girl looked at me and looked at my granddaughter as if to say, "I think your granny tells fibs."
Any other questions? Oh.
I'd love a little bit more information about some of the Hollywood stars, if there's another story.
Yes, well, Lana Turner was having an affair with Ava Gardner. And they were two of my favourite actresses. And do you know these books that I used to paste in photos? I've still got them. And I did them in 1955. I hated school, that's all I was interested in, painting and throwing in photos. So, yes, they were two of my favourite movie stars. I thought they were wonderful.
So they were a couple for a while until Ava Gardner married Frankie Sinatra.
Well, she was married to him at the time, I think.
Any photos of movie stars in there?
No. No, in those books I haven't.
Any last questions for Jan before we say thank you so much? Oh, yes.
Jan, did you go into the folklore of mermaids yourself? Did you do research? Because it is amazing beyond the beauteous visage that we love to look at. There's just such mythology around there.
Yes, there is. No, I didn't. Although since I've done this, Cassie said, Mum, you should do more mermaids. And so I started having a look on Google. Other artists, mermaids, and there's far better than mine. But,
And how many mermaids are painted by the original mermaid? It's a
That's
special
right,
thing.
exactly right. It's collectors.
We'll have to pull up stumps there pretty soon, but any last burning questions? No. So,
What year did the mermaid first be established on the rocks?
sorry?
What year?
What year? 59. Some articles say 1960, but I think it was 59. That's when I won the Miss Australian Surf, and then I got home and immediately I went into that. So it could have been 1960 actually.
So you said there's talk about putting the mermaids back, is that right?
yeah, so Council has a public art program, a public art master plan, and the next project we're going to commence is actually about returning a mermaid to the Bondi Basin, so there will be a public art commission. The start of that process is a Bondi mermaid exhibition in the Bondi Pavilion Gallery from April to May next year, which will be it's kind of a launch. We will not be, I can't be clear about it, we will not be returning them to the rocks. That is a danger that we do not want to take on as a council.
It seems dangerous.
We would hate for a tourist to go out and take a photo with it in a big swell or anything like that. It is, rock faces are actually dangerous environments. Mermaid selfies, there's all sorts of reasons why we don't want to bring and don't want to be encouraging people out there, but we're happy to return them to the Bondi Basin, and we're starting that process, so keep your eye out for it.
So I think it'd be great to have mermaids at one end and Pauline Mensa in bronze at the other end.
I suspect your wishes will be...
And then all of us in the water in the meantime.
But surely they could build something safe,
Yeah.
you know?
Public art is a
Fences up
really...
or something.
Public art is a really nuanced, really contested, really interesting space.
Yes.
There are so many considerations working in the public realm to make sure that our work is safe, going to last, be sustainable in terms of the environment and sustainable in terms of existing, and to be pleasing to the majority of the community. It's a really nuanced piece of public art. It takes a long time to get it right, and we work really hard at it at Council, but the mermaids will be back.
That'd be lovely here with the Bondi Pavilion.
They just may be.
So
We'll see.
noting the cultural significance of our
4 days to the drop.
Oh, wow. Look at you. You'd like to come surfing
Each
with us.
harder.
So noting the cultural significance of the mermaids from 59 to 60 and the new sculptures that are actually being put into play, will the original sculpture be our young lady here, or will you be getting new models to actually do that? The historical significance is this to refurb the other one.
And you ask it in such a journalistic tone as well. So I can tell you that it will be a standard public art commissioning process. So what that means is we put out an EOI process. Therefore, artists will be replying back in terms of giving us their ideas. And then through our wonderful Waverley Council Public Art Committee, we'll be distilling down to a couple of concepts. And then those concepts will work through in terms of engineering and in terms of the practical reality of achieving it. It's a long process. And then a final one will be commissioned based on feasibility in terms of hitting off the criteria of our Public Art Committee, which is placemaking, artistic excellence, sustainability and value for money.
Yep, thanks.
Oh, I hope they get them done.
Did you surf that board? You need another hour if you surf that board.
I had someone behind it holding it up.
It's a hard pose.
A bit wobbly.
On that note, I'd love everyone to join me in giving Jim a applause. It was our privilege to have a Bondi Mermaid here today.
Yeah, I hope the mermaids up before I die.
Yes, exactly.
I'm 84.
84.
I am what I am. I don't want praise. I don't want pity. chance.